Okay.
I'm trying to remember what you
So
want
we,
to do the music and movie stuff.
Yeah, you covered a little bit. I mean, a good amount of stuff from college, but maybe to this day, music you still enjoy. And then,
Yeah, I kind of I've always liked, rock and roll. And I was always kind of a top 40 girl. When I was in high school, there was this radio station called KDKB.
Yeah.
KDKB.
I think it's still, or I think it's
Yeah, it's still around, but it's a different format. But
Yeah.
that was like the cool station. They played album-oriented rock, and everyone, oh yeah, listen to KDKB. So I would try to listen to it, and I couldn't. It was just like I didn't enjoy it.
Didn't resonate.
It didn't resonate with me, and I ended up listening to like the top 40 stations all the time. So that's just kind of the way I was.
Yeah.
A top 40 girl.
Can't really control what resonates. You just know when you hear it.
Yeah. And then when I kind of like rock or soft rock, but I also kind of like jazz now. I didn't used to, but I kind of like listening to like smooth jazz.
Sure.
And a variety. I like Nora Jones, and I like some of Adele's stuff, and a little bit of Ed Sheeran. Dad really likes Ed Sheeran,
Yeah.
and I like some of the Billie Eilish stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like a variety. I like a mix. Country music, there's certain songs that are kind of universal that I like. I can't think of one off the top of my head, but I'm not a huge country fan. It's kind of nice to hear now and then.
Yeah, well, it's interesting, like you said, in your college years, like it kind of started with disco, but moved on to that country western thing.
I think that was more of an NAU thing. Disco was probably big everywhere, but the country western thing I think was more of a. Well, actually, there was a movie. Sometimes the movies influence us because Saturday Night Fever was a big influence, and then there was a movie called Urban Cowboy that came out after that. That also had John Travolta in it. And that kind of led to a big country western.
Surgeons, whatever.
Yeah. But NAU was sort of ahead of the curve because it became popular before that movie came out.
Yeah.
It was just a thing. And again, that Jerry Jeff Walker was really big. And it was just, I forget the other groups, but it was.
I remember as a kid, when I think of mom music, I remember I used to listen to The Doors and Heart, Barracuda. Were those just kind of singles that stuck with you?
Yeah, I like those songs. In college, I listened to Boston and Kansas, Dust in the Wind, and some of the songs of Boston.
Did you listen to Chicago?
A little bit.
It's another place name. Boston. Kansas.
I liked some of their stuff. I wasn't like a huge fan of theirs. There was another group called Three Dog Night that I liked. What other albums? I should look through my old albums to jog my memory.
Yeah.
But I know I really liked the Moody Blues when I was in college, and they were kind of on the way out, but I like their stuff. And I also like Frank Sinatra and Tony Bennett.
Sure.
And even though that was not my generation, I like their songs.
Is that because of your parents, or just for whatever reason?
I don't know. There was some song that one of them did that I liked, and I think I asked for one of their albums for Christmas one year, and I got it. And so I always kind of liked a variety of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Beatles were big when I was younger. I've always liked the Beatles. And then when I was in grade school, there was a TV show called The Monkees.
Oh, yeah.
And they were really big, and I liked their music too, but I always knew it was kind of not the same caliber as the Beatles, but they were fun. So.
Yeah, Monkees, a slightly different idea there. It was more like constructed for TV, but it was also more of like a countercultural, rebellious idea, like more explicitly, whereas the Beatles maybe.
It was kind of a takeoff on the Beatles.
Yeah.
Because they had kind of like Beatles type haircuts, and a lot of their music was written by really good songwriters like Neil Diamond. What's that guy's name? John. There's a song called Sleepy Jean, Cheer Up Sleepy Jean. I can't remember that guy who wrote it, but He was a famous songwriter. I think even Leon Russell might have written one or two of their songs.
Oh, wow.
But it was kind of like a bubblegum
Yeah.
type thing. And it was more like kiddie show kind of stuff. But, the teenagers liked some of their songs too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, I guess in that vein, how about the TV shows growing up?
I loved the Three Stooges when I was little.
Really?
And I watched it, I think they had it on for a while when you were little, and I watched it, I'm like,
This is so dumb.
this is like awful.
Yeah.
I loved that. I loved Popeye. Excuse me. I used to love the show Bewitched. I think every kid's my age. And Batman, and there was another show called Batgirl.
Talking about the Adam West Batman? Like the
Yes,
original, yeah.
I loved that show. And Mission Impossible was another one I liked. Oh, and there was a spy craze when I was younger.
That's right. Get Smart and all
Get
that stuff.
Smart, I loved that show, and I kind of got into the spy craze. I used to spy on my sisters.
Was that Secret Agent Snow?
Yes. So my best friend at the time, Patty Joffrey, she would come over and, we'd try to spy on my sisters, and I got these little, like notepads, and we'd like take down notes. And I said, we have to have code names. So I said, I'm going to be Secret Agent Snow, and you can be Secret Agent Rain.
Whoa, weather themed.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was, I don't know why I was into that, but
Yeah,
it was fun.
there was a craze going around.
Yeah, I was really into that.
Wow. Yeah.
So, and
Brady
then,
Bunch, right?
yeah, it's funny because it wasn't cool to like the Brady Bunch. There was another show called The Partridge Family. Those were considered, like kiddie show, but everybody liked them.
Sure.
So I would watch those. What did I watch in high school? I didn't watch high school. I watched some TV. There was my dad used to love this show called Mannix. It was a detective show, and he'd watch the Rockford Files. So I watched some of those shows. There was another show that I really liked. It was called The Midnight Special. It was on NBC on Friday nights, and it was all like the current bands, and they would just, play their songs. It was like a big concert. And that was on for like 90 minutes. It would come on at midnight. So I'd go out clubbing with my girlfriends, and then I'd come home and watch The Midnight Special and eat saltine crackers.
Wow. Yeah.
That was a good show. And Happy Days was another one I think I used to watch in high school, and stuff like that. So.
And then about college, did you do much TV watching then?
I hardly watched any TV in college because I didn't have a TV in my room. There was one, they had a lounge on one per floor with one TV. So I would go in there periodically, and there were like certain girls that would always monopolize it, and I'm like, I don't want to fight over it. I'm just not, and so.
TV wasn't that good back then, wasn't worth fighting over.
Exactly. And I was so busy socializing and,
So busy faking your ID and going to bars.
Yeah. So I hardly ever stayed home my freshman and sophomore year. I hardly ever stayed home at night anyway. I was always going out with my friends.
Yeah.
So I didn't watch very much TV at all in college.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not until I had my senior year. I had an apartment with Dawn, and we had another guy that lived with us, Mark D'Agostino. He was in our fraternity. And one of them had a TV, but only had like one station. So they used to have old reruns of Star Trek, and Dawn was a real Trekkie.
That one.
So I would watch those with her once in a while. Oh, the other thing that was big in college was Saturday Night Live.
Oh, because it kicked off in the 70s.
I think it kicked off my senior year in high school. I didn't watch it in high school, but when I went to NAU, that was a really big thing for a while to watch Saturday Night Live. You'd find somebody that had a TV, and you'd go hang out in their dorm room, and you'd watch it, and Mr. Bill and all that stuff. That was the cool thing.
Yeah.
So we used to watch Saturday Night Live a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you remember the cast members in those days?
Well, Bill Murray. I think, the original cast was Chevy Chase. I think he was only on it for a year. And then Lorraine Newman, Gilda Radner, and Jane Curtin, and what was that other gal's name? I said Lorraine Newman. Lorraine Newman, Jane Curtin, Gilda Radner, Bill Murray. Oh, and Belushi, John Belushi, and what's the other guy from Canada? Dan Aykroyd.
Aykroyd.
Yeah. And Garrett Morris.
Hmm.
They were the main cast then, and then it changed a little bit. But yeah, we had a lot of fun watching that.
Yeah, that was kind of like a new countercultural show that was
Yes.
just like, yeah.
yeah, it was a cool show to watch.
Yeah.
So.
Kind of reminds me of like, I think you remember when I was middle school, high school, you wouldn't let me have a TV in my room, but I saved up my own money and
Yes.
I bought a crappy TV from Jason Rudd's garage
Yes,
sale.
I remember that.
Put it in my room.
Yeah.
And at the time I would watch Late Night with Conan O'Brien, which
Yes.
might have been in that similar spirit where like, that was when Conan was kind of first starting out and it was more of a low budget thing and they had these like really dorky sets and skits at the beginning where, prior to the interviews they would have these like nutty segments and it just seemed like the coolest thing at the time that it was like this, wacky do-it-yourself thing on network TV. And
yes, and I know that when Steve Martin used to go on, they used to have, "We are two wild and crazy guys." That was like a really, everybody would quote that.
Right, yeah.
And I remember I took a cinematography class and I had to make these little movies. And one of the movies I made was called Mr. Bill Pledges a Fraternity.
Wow.
So I made this little Play-Doh Mr. Bill.
Oh, wow.
And I remember at one point we threw beer on him. It was just some silly thing. It was one of
Was it stop motion or more like a puppet or
that one, I was not stop motion. That one I just like propped him up.
like a puppet kind of thing?
Yeah, and I think, I can't remember if I wrote a script for it because it didn't have audio. I think I had to write a script.
Wow.
Yeah.
Mr. Bill, because I ended up liking Mr. Bill.
I know, when I saw that, oh, that's so funny because I used to like him.
Yeah.
Here comes Mr. Bill's dog.
Yeah. I don't know why I just thought it was nutty or over the top. Because it was like over the top violent or something, right? That was the gag. He would always die and...
Oh no, yeah. Please don't hurt me. And then they do something to him.
Right.
Yeah.
Because for me it was Mr. Bill and then that kind of evolved into that stick figure death cartoons.
Yeah.
Which was big on the early internet, which was my, 6th grade, middle school years.
Yeah.
But yeah, something about it.
Right.
Nutty.
That was funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now how about movies?
When I was a kid, I loved A Hard Day's Night. That was the Beatles' first movie.
I think I had that on the Criterion.
Really?
Yeah.
I loved Paul McCartney. I love that movie and I love Beatles and my sisters, had some of their records, so I was really into that.
Specifically Paul, huh? He was.
Oh yeah. Paul was always my favorite Beatle.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked Mary Poppins, and I liked The Sound of Music, of course. I saw that probably 3 times. In the olden days, movies, I'd forgotten about this, but a lot of times when a movie would first come out, it would only play in the downtown theaters, and they called it first run. And then after it played downtown, then eventually it would start showing in the theaters in the suburbs. And usually every theater just had one movie.
Wow.
And that's all people, and sometimes the movie would play for like a whole year.
Wow.
So it was just way different. Now you go, there's like 10, 16 choices, and they're only there for like a couple weeks, but it was way different back then.
Yeah.
The movie would play for a lot. So once in a while, it seemed like whenever we would go downtown, either downtown Chicago or downtown Pittsburgh, we'd always get dressed up and we'd usually go see a movie, a first run movie. So I probably saw The Sound of Music in downtown Chicago. And eventually it came to the, suburbs. Another movie that was big for me was Funny Girl, with Barbara Streisand.
It was like her first big movie, is that right?
That was her first big movie.
Yeah.
Again, because I had older sisters, they got to see some movies that I wasn't allowed to yet because some of the ratings. So we were really big on musicals. So they would buy the soundtrack for West Side Story and they'd teach me all the songs and Kathy would tell me like the whole plot of the movie, and then Maureen and I would pretend I'm Maria, she's Anita, and we were singing, we'd sing the whole I Feel Pretty and all that stuff. So that was really cool. And the same thing with Funny Girl. Kathy loved Barbara Streisand, so she probably bought the Funny Girl album. And we'd listen to that over and over again and memorize all the songs. And so that movie was good. Then when I was in high school, I'm trying to remember what movies. I remember the movie The Exorcist came out, and I wanted to go see it. And my mom said I couldn't see it because it was, too violent.
How old were you?
I think I was 16. I think you're supposed to be 17 again, but I had a fake.
Right, yeah, it wasn't a problem for mine.
Wasn't a problem. So I remember I went to the movie with my friends, And I actually had nightmares, and I guess that was a logical consequence, as you could say. I shouldn't have seen that movie because it traumatized Mom knew. I didn't tell everyone, of course.
Just had an unrelated nightmare as far as she
right.
was, yeah.
And then when I was in college, I remember Star Wars came out, and I was like, oh, this is the best movie ever. And I went to see it, and I almost walked out in the middle of it. I don't get this movie.
Yeah,
and Dad said the same thing.
I'm sure, and this is the thing with certain movies, they can kind of get overhyped.
Yeah.
Where sometimes, like, if you just walk in and had no idea what you're about to see, and then suddenly you saw Star Wars for the first time, you're like, whoa, this is cool.
Yeah.
But people hype it up too much. Because I remember watching the original Star Wars, and like the cinematography and just like all the special effects, and they were groundbreaking for the time, but it's very like almost like a political drama, or it gets into like a lot of the minutia of like the rebels versus the Empire. Like if you're not into that kind of thing, it's just not gonna resonate.
Yeah. I remember seeing American Graffiti. I really liked that movie. I'm trying to remember. That was in high school.
Well, now you haven't got your favorite movie, Vertigo. How did that?
Oh yeah. So they used to have a lot of movies on TV. There was actually on NBC, they used to have Saturday Night the Movies, and they would show movies periodically. So one night they showed the movie Vertigo. I remember our whole family sat around and watched that movie.
The first time you saw it?
Now, I can't remember how old I was. I was pretty young, like maybe 8 or 9.
Was it color TV?
Yes, we got color TV.
Okay.
That was the reward for us making the move from Pittsburgh that we loved to Chicago. My dad got us a color TV for Christmas.
Yeah.
That was a big thing.
Yeah.
So when I was in 2nd grade, we got a color TV. So we watched it on color TV. And I just remember we were all like, wow. And again, I was young, so some of the stuff I didn't understand, what my sisters would explain to me, or they'd say, wait till the commercial. And then they go, this is what's going on. And I just thought it was so cool.
Yeah.
And
just the aesthetic and all the whatever.
It was just very haunting, and I didn't quite understand it, but I think it came on again years later. I saw it somewhere, and I like it better now,
Yeah.
So I just was kind of obsessed with it. And the same with the movie Some Like It Hot. That's another one of my favorite movies of all time.
Mm-hmm.
That was on like ABC, Sunday night movie, and I watched that, and I just thought it was hysterical.
It's Michael Pond. That's the one with Marilyn Monroe and was it
Tony Curtis
Lemon?
and Jack Lemmon, and
And that was at the
Phil
Coronado?
Bedell, yeah.
That's right. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I love that movie. So
That's the one where they dress up in drag. And,
yeah, they're on the run from Al Capone or whoever made up the mafia, the mob.
right.
Yeah. So I love that movie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I like a lot of the movies of Billy Wilder. He did Some Like It Hot. He did Stalag 17, which is another great
I
movie.
remember watching that with you at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, and It's a Wonderful Life. I think he did Sabrina too. There's a lot, major and minor. And then I like a lot of Alfred Hitchcock movies too.
Mm-hmm. Was Vertigo the first Hitchcock movie, as far as you remember?
No, I think the first one I saw was called The Trouble with Harry, which was a comedy. I think it's the only comedy he ever did. And that was on TV too. And I liked that one. And I only saw it once, and I just saw it recently. It was on something. And it held up. Yeah. Oh, and The Birds. I saw that on TV too. So I think I might have seen those before Vertigo.
The Vertigo's the one that really
That's the one that
resonated.
stuck with me. Yeah. And Strangers on a Train is another one. Or not Stranger. That's a good one. Shadow of a Doubt. That's my other favorite. Yeah. So, yeah, I like classic movies, like movies from the 40s and some of the 50s.
Even
I like-
though it's kind of before your time, so to speak.
Yeah, and there used to be a TV show on Channel 8 on the local PBS station called Cinema Classics. And there was a guy on there, his name was Nick Salerno. I think he was an ASU professor. He would introduce classic movies and kind of give the backstory, and he loved Betty Davis, and he showed a lot of her movies. And one of them was Now Voyager,
Yeah.
which is another one of my favorites.
Yeah.
So, and I think I've told some of this before, that a lot of times I'd be watching those, Maureen and I would watch them together, and we'd analyze stuff. And then my dad would come walking through, and he'd recognize people and say, oh, that's so-and-so, you know, they used to do blah, 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 and they were married to blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, wow, he knows a lot, you know, and he'd recognize like minor characters, you know, like the guy in It's a Wonderful Life that played the druggist, which was kind of a minor character. He's like, oh, he used to be, you know, a big actor and he did blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I didn't know that. And I just made it, I always thought that was really interesting.
Yeah. I remember as a kid, you used to read like People magazine and Entertainment Weekly. So that kind of maybe sparked your interest in certain celebrity.
Yes.
Type of thing. Yeah.
And then Maureen sometimes will come and say, oh, I just read, you know, an article about so-and-so. Did you know that they used to be married to so-and-so? No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's so cool. And oh, I remember when they were in such and such movie and I thought they did such a good job and they played against type and, you know, so we would discuss things like that and I enjoyed that and Maureen did too and my dad was good at that.
Yeah.
How
did your dad know about all that stuff?
I think he was kind of a film buff. There was another PBS show in Chicago called The Toy That Grew Up and they used to show silent movies and I remember watching that with him and I remember watching the original Phantom of the Opera, the silent version with Lon Chaney, who was like a really famous actor in the 1920s. And I think he was into that stuff. Yeah. Probably because he grew up during the Depression. I think movies were a big escape for people. Yeah. So he probably saw a lot of movies growing up and I don't know. My mom, I don't remember her talking about movies, but my dad was more into it.
That's interesting. I know certain people are like better remembering faces, so it sounds like your dad was really good at recognizing faces and putting that together.
Yes, the Foleys really have good memories.
Yeah.
That's just a total Foley thing.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
O'Mara's not as much.
O'Mara's not as much, because even just talking to my Foley cousins, they're all that way. And Maureen and Eileen and I are like that too. Kathy isn't quite as much. She's probably a little more O'Mara. I mean, it's not like she doesn't remember anything, but they just don't have that real heightened
unusual
memory thing.
Unusually good,
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, yeah, that's that.
Yeah.
But, and as far as current movies, or more, you know, last 20, 30 years, I one of my favorites is While You Were Sleeping.
That's the Sandra Bullock.
Yes.
Hugh Grant is in that? Or
no, that's Bill Pullman, I think.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, and that other guy. Can't think of his name.
Yeah.
The guy with the dark hair that plays the brother.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, that's one of my favorites. I like a lot of Sandra Bullock movies. I liked The Proposal with her and Ryan Reynolds. That's a really cute one.
Okay.
And Betty White's in that too.
Okay.
What other movies? I remember I watched the movie Memento once, and I let you watch it with us because I didn't. You kind of helped explain it. I thought that was a cool movie.
Yeah, that was very groundbreaking.
Yeah.
I mean, no one ever did a movie like that.
Yeah.
It was an interesting device.
Yeah. I'm sure there's more. I just can't think of them off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But
that's all the standouts.
I like movies, and I think of them as a form of art. You know, like, and I was telling Caitlin this. I showed her that movie, Now Voyager, and some of the scenes, the way they have them laid out, and you know, the angles and the clothes they're wearing, and the placement of the objects, and I'm like, that's art to me.
Yeah.
You know, and I just really like that.
Yeah. So I guess that's where I get it. Yeah.
Yes, and one good thing that my parents used to do a lot, and that's probably why I tried to do it with you kids, they would try to expose us to art and culture, and they would take us to plays once in a while. And I remember once they took us to see the movie Cactus Flower, and it was a big night. We took the train downtown, and we went to, I think it was called Schubert's Theater, and it was a popular Neil Simon play, and it was just really a neat experience. And so that's why I thought, I'd like to do that with my kids. So
yeah,
I did.
So we went to the Herberger or the Child's Play.
Yes.
Yeah. Arizona Center.
Slim Goodbody.
That's right.
You know, all that stuff.
Which, by the way, Lauren and I drove by, and like the Arizona Center's been totally remodeled. I don't know if you've been down there lately, but
I haven't.
Yeah, it's like because before Lauren and I moved, like in 2019, we went to see a movie at the Arizona Center, and it was all like construction, and there was a lot of fences everywhere, and it was like all torn up. So just the other day we drove by and like, it's all brand new and there's all these like crazy new architectural white awning things and just interesting if you drive by it. There's a lot fancier than it used to.
I wonder what they have in there now. 'Cause
Yeah.
last time I was there, a lot of stuff was shut down.
Yeah. We didn't actually go in. I'd be curious to see what that's like. But,
Yeah.
It seems like they're trying to change that up and put money into it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good.
So that's the most of the music, movies, TV, all that stuff.
Yeah. So as far as philosophy and words of wisdom, I can just think of a few random things. I'd probably think of more later, but I think my dad, the thing he used to say to me a lot was stand tall. He'd say, stand up straight, kid, you're getting around short, because I was always slouching. And when I went away to college, they helped me move in and they left, and I opened the closet door to put something away, and my dad had taped, had a piece of Scotch tape, and he had written on it, stand tall. So that touched my heart. So, I mean, you can take that to mean not just this, but just be proud of yourself. Yeah.
Don't be shy,
Yeah.
Advocate for yourself, that type of thing.
Yeah, and other things, I remember him saying that no matter how bad off you think you are, there's always somebody worse off than you.
Mm-hmm.
And he also would say, don't judge people by what other people say. You judge them how they treat you and how you feel about them. And I always thought that was good advice too, because sometimes, people would say, oh, that person's bleh. And then you meet him and I'm like, they're really nice, So that was good. My mom, she was really big on always be a lady. Be, just, which again, metaphorically, be polite and kind and have dignity and, carry yourself well. And that was her big message. And she used to also say, nobody gets off scot-free. So no matter how easy somebody seems to be having it, there's always going to be adversity in people's lives. Nobody gets off scot-free.
Yeah.
Another thing that stood out to me with her when I think I was like in 5th grade, and we were invited to go to my cousin Dan O'Mara's, Uncle Frank's son, his confirmation, and he asked my dad to be a sponsor. So we were all set to go, and I got sick. I had the flu or something, and I had like a fever and all that stuff, and didn't feel good. So my mom stayed behind with me, and it was a Sunday, and so my sisters and my dad and all went to South Bend, which was a couple hours away. And so it's just my mom and I was like 10, and my mom used to leave me at home periodically when I was 10. It was no big deal. But I remember thinking, she's going to leave me here to go to church, and I didn't want her to because I felt so crummy, but I didn't want to admit it because I was trying to be a big kid. So we were watching TV together, and I said, oh, you're probably going to go to church soon. And she said, oh, no, I'm not leaving you. She said, it's my duty as your mother to stay here with you, and my place is here with you. And for some reason, that just made me feel really secure. Like she took it so seriously, and so I guess I took that to heart too.
Yeah, definitely felt that growing up.
Yeah. So they were good people, and there's probably more I could say, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. We take a break for now.
Yeah, I'll think of more.